They are like the hardest working team in America. I would go to practice when I was getting recruited and I was like, yeah, like I want to be a part of this. Like it's just different. The work ethic is different.
The biggest thing that separated was like Coach Arico's constant presence within March Madness and really taking her team to the next level.
Coach talks to us every day about, take it one day at a time and just put it all in. Like we're all in, we're 100% every single day. And so just like being the Michigan team that she's produced for 14 years.
I think we have a young group that's like hungry and ready to learn, and sometimes you don't always get that, and I think everybody is excited to, get to work and show the world what we want to do.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of The Lab presented by Champ Media. I'm your host, Ben Lyons, and I'm excited today to dive into the program for the women's basketball team. Let's get right into it because Kim Barnes Arico, since she became the head coach at the University of Michigan back in 2012, has been on fire. I'm talking about every year except for one with 20-plus victories, 8 appearances in the NCAA tournament. And the only time she didn't win 20 games was because it was a shortened season. They went 16-6 and went to the Sweet 16. So it starts with the head coach. She's now been there 10-plus years and has built a real program, was Coach of the Year in the Big Ten in 2017. Last year, they went 23-11. And, maybe I would say a disappointing finish in the NCAAs. But the fact that we've gotten used to as fans of women's basketball now at the University of Michigan, that they're in the tournament every single year. Naz Hillman, the greatest player, I think, in the program's history, is doing big things in the WNBA since she led them to an Elite 8 appearance a few years back, and they've got depth and they're developing players both internally as well as recruiting outside the program. And that takes us to our episode today, where we're fortunate enough to have an interview with 2 players. Brooke Daniels, who is that transfer. She came from Oakland and was able to be a rotation player last year, and we expect big things of her this year. And then Macy Brown, a former Miss Michigan basketball. Both these young ladies grew up in the state of Michigan, have always had their eyes and hearts on playing for the University of Michigan and rocking the Block M and the maize and blue, and now they're doing just that, and sky's the limit for this group this season. Obviously, a Big Ten championship is in conversation, as well as a deep run in the NCAAs in March. So here's my conversation with 2 of the young stars on the current women's basketball team at the University of Michigan, Macy Brown and Brooke Daniels. All right, joining the lab right now, Brooke Daniels and Macy Brown, both natives of the state of Michigan and players, of course, on the University of Michigan women's basketball team. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us here today. Brooke, I'll start with you. Growing up in Michigan, when did the idea, the dream start for you to play for the University of Michigan?
It's honestly like a funny story. I'm a transfer from Oakland University, so I was there my freshman and sophomore year. I was recruited a little bit by Michigan State, but I was never really like heavily recruited by Michigan coming out of high school. And then, I played them 2 years in a row at Oakland, and then I wanted to get into the portal, to pursue bigger dreams, aspirations, and trying to get to the next level. And like during my time in the portal, I was recruited by Marquette with Coach Justine, and then Coach Duffy left, and then Coach Justine ended up at Michigan, and she gave me a call, and kind of like the rest was history. Being from Michigan, like a lot about like Michigan and Michigan State, but the biggest thing that separated was like Coach Arico's like constant presence within March Madness and kind of, really taking her team to the next level. And what I also liked was kind of like they were a little bit rebuilding And I felt like that was a good opportunity for me to come in and, try to compete for some playing time, which was also like, really helpful. And then like me and Macy have played against each other like all throughout AAU. So like kind of like having familiar faces. Same thing with Allie Van Timmerman, like that was comforting and well. And like my AAU director, Coach Imez, has a decent relationship with Coach Arico. So it's kind of like a huge thing, for me to go there. So, yeah.
It's a huge thing for you as well, Macy, being that you were Miss Michigan basketball or Michigan Miss Basketball in 2023. Tremendous honor. What goes into that, and when did your dream of going to school in Ann Arbor begin?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I really remember, I feel like I grew up watching Michigan and Michigan State, and I would go to both their games. And so I've known Coach Arico since about 7th grade. So having that relationship and just having that trust with her since the beginning was really huge for me. But yeah, I mean, just having such an amazing AAU program and high school program was huge for me. And I think they really built it up on community and just playing with a good attitude and effort. I feel like those are the two things that NBA at least really instilled in us at a young age. And so knowing that Michigan, they are like the hardest working team in America. I would go to practice when I was getting recruited and I was like, yeah, like I want to be a part of this. Like it's just different. The work ethic is different. And I think going and seeing different practices, I would just compare the two, and it's like nothing compares to Michigan. So
well, I wonder if you compare your experience in Michigan to the ones your sisters have had. You come from a big basketball family. Walk our audience through where everybody's played, where they play, and what those battles are like in the driveway.
Yeah, so my oldest sister, Olivia, she's 25 years old now, but she played at St. Bonaventure and then transferred to Valparaiso. And then my middle sister, Jillian, she plays at UVA. So lots of growing up, we would play against each other a lot. There would be some tears. We ended up fighting every single time, but that's what made it fun. But yeah.
Brooke, you rock number 5. I grew up loving the Fab Five. Jalen Rose wore number 5. It's a legendary number for the Maize and Blue. What's the reasoning behind wearing number 5?
Honestly, growing up with my older brother Blake, I legitimately copied everything that he did, like when it came to nicknames, like any type of catchphrases. And he's a football guy, so he wore 5 throughout high school, and I just wanted to wear 5 because he wore it. And it's honestly been like such a big thing, like having a role model like him, like somebody who's been through so much.
How about for you, Macy? Number 2, what's the story there?
So I grew up wearing number 7, and once we couldn't wear number 7 in high school, like I always wore it growing up in AAU. And so once I got to high school, I was like, gosh, like what number should I be? And at this time, my middle sister Jillian was wearing 4, and then Olivia had just graduated from high school. So similar to Brooke, was like I wanted to be like my sister, and so I wore number 2 for that reason. But
cool.
Yeah.
Keeping it in the family. Very cool. Both
Exactly.
have a similarity there in your approach to your numbers. I wonder if you share a similarity in your approach to the game. Do you each have a pregame routine or a meal or a song that you kind of get you fired up or get you ready to play?
For me, honestly, it's just I like to like mentally be prepared. So like routine isn't really a huge thing. Like obviously, warm up, walk through that we do. I honestly like listening to like gospel music and sad music. Like I listened to Adele before because it just gets me in a certain mindset. I listen to like Eric Thomas. He's like this motivational speaker before games, and to kind of just get in that mindset.
How about you, Macy?
Yeah,
What's the pregame routine?
I would say it's very similar. I listen to slower music because I'm already like super amped up and hyped for the game, and so I try to like bring it down a notch, you know what I mean? Kind of like stay level-headed. And so I always do like some sort of pregame nap, or I'll do meditation for like 10 minutes, just like visualizing things and stuff like that. And then, yeah, we always have pregame meals together as a team, we usually have chicken parm, salmon, lots of carbs, so those are huge. And then, yeah, I would just say those are the main things.
Well, for those who might not be familiar with your games, how would you describe the strengths for each other? So Macy, describe Brooke's game, and Brooke, I want to hear you break down Macy Brown.
Okay, I like this. I would say Brooke, she has this contagious energy about her. Like on the court, she just brings it every single day in practice. I'm like, I want to be on her team just because of how she's like the hardest worker on the court at all times. Like point blank period. She's never, I would say your game is fearless. That's like how I would really describe it in one word. But I would also say unselfish too. You're always screening for other people, getting other people open, which I think is huge, especially for our team too. Because then, you set screens, you flash, you're open too. And I think you just all around are great offensively and defensively. I think she just brings our team to a whole new level.
Yeah, I would say like for Macy, honestly, like coming in with so many different guards, like we were kind of asked to play so many different positions. Like our team, we pretty much play positionless basketball. And like me and Macy were just kind of like we were just gonna do, whatever we could to kind of get on the floor. And like Macy is a very like consistent and like tempoed player. Like there'll be some times where like Macy will have some type of bag work that I'm like, I never knew she had that. And like Macy in practice and like honestly in games, like I think of the Iowa game and the Illinois game, like even though we lost against Iowa, like Macy came off the bench kind of like cold and just really gave us a spark and had some big time buckets. Macy's a lethal shooter. She's left-handed, so I think a lot of people like she throws a lot of people off because Macy will come off the bench ready to shoot, like hand down, man down, and like shooting 2 to 3 feet off the 3-point line. I'm like, like Curry, I'm joking, and she's hitting. And I think Macy will be like a big part of our team, like as somebody that like teams don't know that much of, but like somebody that's going to be able to deliver and like take a load off offensively and defensively for our team.
Look, if this whole basketball thing, doesn't work out for the two of you, I think you both have a future as an agent. Like you could represent players the way you're selling me on each other's games. Well done. But here we are, like the eve of the season. You guys have the great privilege of playing in Crisler Arena, like the Crisler Center. Talk to me about what the vibe is like when that place is rocking. And it's been really cool the last couple of years to see some real momentum behind the women's program. I feel like Naz Hillman laid the foundation now for this new era of women's basketball in Michigan, and you guys are carrying the baton. And what's it like to play at Crisler?
Yeah, I would just say it's so special, especially having in the past couple of years people that were on the team prior and being able to go out there and play for them, and knowing that they laid the foundation for us, just doing that for them. And it's just a crazy feeling, honestly, going out there and seeing all the fans. And I honestly, it's speechless because it's just a feeling unlike anything else. And like my oldest sister who doesn't play anymore talks about it. She's like, I would trade anything to do that like again. And so and knowing we have a community behind us is so special too.
You look around, you're like, this ain't Valparaiso. This is Arbor. It's a little different. It's a little different for you, Brooke. For Brooke, for someone like you who played at Oakland and had a lot of success there, to then transfer, go through the portal, and play for Michigan. What was it like stepping on the floor at Crisler for the first time, and what's the whole vibe like there for games for you?
Like someone playing at a mid-major school that's obviously a basketball school, like the support and the unwavering, showing up of alumni and fans and different atmospheres, it's unbelievable, especially for women's sports. They support all aspects of women's sports, and when you're mid-major, you kind of get to see the differences. There would be times where less than 200-300 people were at our games compared to all of our games pretty much kind of being packed or very much well populated, and it's a different feeling. I remember, I think it was versus Northwestern, and we got a huge stop and everyone rose to their feet, and it was just it was a crazy and unreal moment, especially coming from mid-major and like being able to experience it and like actually play through it. And it's just like something that you can't really like explain unless you're there.
Now, those games are a lot of fun. You're going to be playing a game in my neck of the woods in the tri-state area. I know on January 19th, you're part of the Coretta Scott King Classic, going to be playing at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, taking on Vanderbilt. What's it like to be, asked to play in a game like that? Everybody's got it circled on the calendar now to play on MLK Day. It's a huge deal. So, yeah, give us a little preview of what we can expect on the 19th versus Vandy.
Yeah, I mean, we're super excited. We know going into the season that iron sharpens iron at the end of the day. And so I think having such a great non-conference schedule will only help us going into March. And Big Ten play as well. So I think that'll be huge for us, especially being a team that's on the younger side.
I think like the main thing that like we've really been working on is like being the best version of ourselves and also being able to really compete against, well-popular players and stronger like teams. And that's just one thing that I've kind of like tried to have the mindset of is like bet on today and fight for today and not worry about tomorrow. And I think like us being able to build on every practice and, every preseason game and things like that is going to be really special to like, keep building throughout the season. And it's just going to be really exciting for this time.
It is going to be exciting to have a big game like that in a neutral site. Obviously, the Michigan faithful will be there in full force. Macy, I'll start with you. If you were working the schedule and could pick any city in the world for Michigan to have a game, we saw Juju go out to Paris last year. Like, where would you want to play a game? Anywhere in the world?
Ooh, anywhere in the world? Ooh. I think Paris would be cool too. I think because all those teams went there, and it was in the beginning of season, so it was a little tough doing like that tournament that I know they did. But I would say I'd have to go Italy just because my freshman year we did a foreign trip out in Italy, and it was just an unreal experience, so I would go there.
How about you, Brooke? If you could play commissioner of the Big Ten and assign Michigan a road game somewhere in the world, where would you like to go?
Yeah, I can't really think of anything like internationally, but I'm always going to bet on Miami, like just because Stephen Ross and like when I was there for my Miami career adventure trip this summer, there was like so many Michigan alumni there, like, a part of like million and billion dollar businesses, and like they all support Michigan in so many different ways, like by giving back and like just being able to compete in like a city like that around alumni who have just made headlines and pretty much like changed industries would be so cool.
All right, so Brooke's looking at it from a networking perspective, and Macy's hoping to get some Italian food. So we see where your priorities.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Hey, you're talking about networking and the business of basketball and all these things. Our show, The Lab, is a place for student athletes to connect with fans and share their experiences in this new NIL era of college sports. There are a lot of things that us as fans on the outside, like we hear about with NIL, we don't really understand. So I'd love to hear from each one of you. Macy, I'll start with you. Just kind of what's it been like navigating NIL? What are some of the pros about it, and how do you feel supported, on campus and going about your day to day?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like nowadays today people choose schools like for money and stuff like that, but I think you have to go into it looking at, okay, still where can I get a good degree? Where do they have, great networks of alumni and stuff like that? And so for Brooke and I, we both went on career ventures this past summer, hers in Miami and mine in London. And so I think having NIL, it's such an amazing thing. I think it's so great that we can, show our name, image, and likeness and, make some money off of that. But I think keeping the main thing is always the best thing. And, when you're just putting in the work every single day, like it's all going to pay off. And so, yeah, I think knowing like your priorities at the end of the day and still, going somewhere where you can get a good education is super important. That's something that I know Brooke has prioritized and same with me. So.
Yeah, for me, I would say like there's a lot of misconceptions and like different like beliefs and opinions about NIL. Some people think it's ruining college basketball, and some people like agree with the players. And I think a big misconception is like that a lot of people are strictly like leaving for money. Unless you're like really like a big name player, that's not really the main thing. And like most of like people were making money off of NIL was through their collective, which is pretty much like through your donors and your alumni. And so like unless you're like a huge name like Paige Buchers, Juju Watkins and all them, like the NIL stuff, like you're not getting like all those types of deals. And I think some people like kind of have a lot to say about NIL because it's crazy. Like if you see like how some people are getting offered millions of dollars, but like being a college athlete is already hard enough. And like you don't get the same privileges like as regular students, like being able to work a job, like save extra money. So I think NIL allows college athletes to live more comfortably and like being able to support yourself financially, because like if you really sat down and like kind of like did like a price evaluation of like just like the stipend amount you get, you're not really like having a lot of money like even for groceries. And like when you go to a school like Michigan, you're well taken care of like resource wise, like we have Feeling Blue and we have different things like that. But like even that sometimes, you still want to, get extra things and stuff like that. And NIL, I think, is just a great way for athletes to make money off their name. Like you think of past players like Reggie Bush and Johnny Manziel, like who've made their schools like millions of dollars off their name, and they didn't benefit anything from it. And that was probably before like people were really like, getting paid like for training table and stuff like that. And I think a big misconception is that like everybody's leaving for money. Like people want to like be where they're valued. And if I'm bringing a lot of fans and if I'm doing a lot of production on the court and like, you don't see my value and you don't see like me, being able to like make more money off my name, which I know I'm bringing a lot of like camaraderie. Like some athletes take offense to that, which, is reasonable.
Oh, well said. No, appreciate the perspective. But as Macy said, let's keep the main thing the main thing. Let's talk about the upcoming season and this team, this group that you guys are a part of and are about to embark on another season. Macy, what has you fired up? What has you hyped up for this year?
I'm super excited. I feel like now we have a solid core returning. I feel like coming out of my freshman year, going to sophomore year, there was only 4 of us. And so having some more experience, I think, is super important coming in. And, Coach talks to us every day about, take it one day at a time and just like put it all in. Like we're all in. We're 100% every single day. And so I think coming in with that attitude and, like we're probably like the underdog in most areas in like our non-conference schedule, but like who cares? Like no one can count us out, like coming in every day, just like being the Michigan team that she's produced for 14 years. So I think that would be a good thing.
How about for you, Brooke? What are you looking forward to most this season, and what should fans be excited about, you think?
Yeah, I'm just kind of like piggybacking off of Macy, having more experience returning definitely helps. And I think like with us getting older and having more experience, my second year playing, Big Ten basketball, same with our just now sophomores and everybody else coming in. I think we have a young group that's like hungry and ready to learn, and sometimes you don't always get that. So like Coach Arico and our entire coaching staff, like Natalie Achanwa with her experience, the WNBA, Coach Justine with her experience, Coach Reese and Coach Mel, like they all done a good job with really connecting with players over the summer and kind of like figuring people out. Especially we still have like a kind of a newer class, 3 freshmen and 2 transfers. That's pretty much half the team. And we put together a pretty well-rounded non-conference, and I think everybody is excited to get to work and show the world what we want to do.
No, absolutely. Definitely excited for what you ladies can put together this year. Like I said, it feels like there's been some real momentum building around the program, and only big things obviously are expected in the future. Macy, what I love too about this crew at Michigan, not just with the women's team, but whether it's the men's team or other sports, it seems to me that I'm learning that, and I remember it from my time when I was there as well, that the athletes are really dialed into the Ann Arbor community at large. You guys are all involved in so many different programs and giving back in different ways, connecting with fans. So what do you love as someone from the state of Michigan about living and playing and studying in Ann Arbor, and how do you think you're dialed into the community?
Yeah, for sure. Ann Arbor the community here is unreal. And so I think just seeing that at all of the games, whether it's, women's or men's basketball, field hockey, lacrosse. And so I think all of the athletes here just have a certain type of respect for each other. And we all just really admire what each other, what we go through every day, our goals and stuff like that. And so it just forms such a great community. And whether it's going to the store and someone saying great game, it's just so nice and hearing that and, wanting to give back. I know Brooke is doing a camp. We did a camp all together a couple of years ago. And so I think just being able to give back to the community that supports us so much is huge. And so being involved, whether it's, some people are in Athletes in Action, which is a Christian student athlete group. And so, or whether it's SAC, I'm joining SAC, which is basically a representation for each team, having one person and all the student athletes meet. And so having that, I think, will be really good, and just being able to be there for the other student athletes and support them has been great.
I'm glad you mentioned Brooke's camp. I love basketball camp culture. I loved it when I was a kid and I was a camper. I've been a counselor sometimes. Kind of pride myself on being that counselor that the kids will remember and be like, why did my coach have me doing yoga poses and layup lines? He was nuts. I like to kind of be a little crazy. What's your camp like, Brooke? Talk to me about why you wanted to put on a camp. I think it's called Bet on Yourself.
Yeah, so being from Macomb, Michigan, there weren't a lot of strong basketball players in this area. There's more towards Detroit and things like that. We had Jermaine Jackson Jr. come through. And we didn't really have that many camps, basketball camps, to give back to the community, especially from the women's perspective. I wanted to give back and kind of reconnect with my community, especially being from somebody who's played at all the high levels and who's had the experience. I wanted to be hands-on because you don't really get to see that often. And just the way, training is nowadays, everyone has something to say, but a lot of people don't have, the on-court experience. And that's something that definitely, even working the camp with Coach Arico this year, a lot of the kids were asking, what does it take to be at this level? And you can't really get those questions if you're not around people who have had that experience. And, just being around my uncle Jermaine Jackson, he had a Jermaine Jackson Community Center where he just let anybody come in and play basketball. And I just think that's, really where you start, is by giving back and, refunneling into the community that you grew up in.
I know, very cool. Yeah, I mean, camp culture means a lot. It gives opportunity, builds, structure and discipline, and something for kids to look forward to in the summertime. So very, very cool that you're doing that and a part of that. Want to end on this. I mean, you mentioned the WNBA. We're excited the W's coming back to Detroit. Is that something that both of you are focused on, making the W, continuing your careers after Michigan? What are your aspirations, you think, when your time is done in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, honestly, I have no idea, kind of just going with the flow and seeing, what all works out. But obviously that's been a dream since I was young, and so that would be super cool. But whether it's playing overseas for a couple of years and then getting into the corporate world too, I feel like Michigan just sets us up for success on and off the court. So getting that networking in, like Brooke said, and, just going day by day.
Yeah, for me, I think the W has always been a dream, and, that's something definitely that I want to strive for. But if that means, taking the overseas route and then getting in from there and things like that, that obviously, means a lot. But being a political science pre-law major, my overall goal is to become a lawyer and get into politics, maybe one day House of Representative or Senate. That's the goal. So yeah.
Well, you definitely have my vote. That's for sure. So you got a vote over here. I'll be rooting for both of you this season. Obviously, hope to come see you play January 19th against Vanderbilt in New Jersey, and make a trip out to Ann Arbor as well. Thank you both so much for hanging out here on the lab. We really appreciate it, and go Blue.
Thank you.
Go Blue. Thank you for having us.
All right, that was my conversation with University of Michigan basketball players Macy Brown and Brooke Daniels. Very excited for that game January 19th against Vanderbilt on a neutral site out at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. Being a part of the MLK festivities is a tremendous honor. The Coretta Scott King Classic will be super turned up, and I look for Macy and Brooke and the Wolverines to have a great showing when they take the court January 19th. Anytime you can travel as a team and have a game outside of your conference or outside of sort of your traditional schedule, I think it brings the group together. And especially in honoring the legacy of Dr. King, I think it's going to be a special day, January 19th, and going to be a special season for Macy and for Brooke. They're returning to the squad. They've got some continuity now in the program. They've got some depth, and they've got a great head coach in Kim Barnes Arico. So big things on the horizon for the women's team this season. We'll be checking in with them throughout their run to the NCAAs right here on the lab. We appreciate you for checking in with us. Another episode here on Champ Media. Again, my name is Ben Lyons, and we hope you're able to download, subscribe, follow everything we're building here at the lab. Another great episode in the books, and we look forward to having more conversations in the weeks to come with current student athletes, alumni. I'd love to get Naz Hillman, a Michigan legend, on the show. We got to reach out to the Atlanta Dream, see what she's up to. So yeah, definitely want to get some of the alumni on the program, and look forward to having more conversations with the student athletes in the weeks to come. New episodes of The Lab drop each and every Wednesday right here on Champ Media. So we'll see you next time, and until then, go Blue.